So, last time on Fated Mates of the Drakoan, Jess had just told her friends about the aliens that she saw. In this episode, Jess struggles with her experiences and the reality that nowhere is truly safe. Let's get started. Hi, my name's Danielle Forrest, and on this channel, I do videos about myself, my writing, and anything related to those topics. In this video, like I said, I'm going to be reading episode 8 of my serial Fated Mates of the Drakoan titled Safe No More. And before we get started, I am just really happy about a change to my setup. You might not notice it, but I upgraded my room screen behind me. I'd bought one that was just a bit too narrow, and it forced me to constantly be squeezed up really. I may have gone a little bit too far, and it forced me to be constantly squeezed up really tight against my desk, which made recording not exactly fun, and definitely not something I looked forward to. This one is nice and wide, and I have it far enough away that I feel like I have some breathing room, and I love it. Anyway, let's get into the episode. After dinner, they settled in the living room, each of them holding their stomachs as they groaned over how full they were. Jess felt ridiculous as she recalled thinking that the two rabbits would only be a small supplement to their diet. Now she suspected her guilt had twisted her perceptions, leaving her unable to see the truth. Not only had Amanda made a fairly big meal, the biggest they'd had in days, but she'd asked Tom to put the rest in the smoker out back. Usually, I wouldn't suggest running the smoker for only a few pounds of meat, but I can't see wasting it, Amanda had said. So they'd ended up eating on the back patio with the rich scent of smoking meat filling their nostrils, enhancing their meal and reassuring them that there was still more to come. Maybe because of all that, the mood in the room was better than it had been in days. They all felt more secure, hopeful, and happy. And as they relaxed into their seat cushions, the conversation naturally transitioned to the aliens she'd seen earlier. This time, Amanda was the most engaged initially, making up for having been absent for the first conversation. Before long, the lassitude caused by the meal evaporated, each of her friends sitting on the edges of their seats as they debated the significance of the alien presence. Jess understood why they were so obsessed, but also, she just wanted a break. She wanted to talk about stupid shit like Dungeons and Dragons or the latest sci-fi movie or show. She wanted to listen as Scotty enthused about the game he was playing, or Amanda enthused about a recipe she couldn't wait to try. What she wouldn't give for just a little slice of normalcy right now. But as that wasn't possible, and the conversation continued to obsessively spiral around the aliens, she stood up and paced to the window. She looked out at the sky over the houses across the street, calmed slightly by the stunning array of colors painting the day's end. She leaned against the window, which was surprisingly cool against her shoulder, and tried to tune out the voices of her friends. She couldn't really blame them for their interest. Not only was it a subject that affected them all greatly, but it was a mystery. And while trapped in their home without internet, it wasn't likely there was much else to talk about. But they weren't there. They didn't have to see the aliens in person, didn't have to feel the adrenaline and fear that came along for the ride. After the day she'd had, she was completely exhausted and just needed a break from it all. She sighed as she continued to stare out the window. There wasn't even anything to look at. All their neighbors were inside. No cars were going down the street. No animals were being walked. No children were playing. From this vantage point, it was easy to imagine that the world had already ended, that humans were gone and only their constructions were left to speak of their existence. So at first, what caught her attention was simply movement. Since everything was so still, any movement was noticeable. But since it was at the very edge of her view through the window, and partially obstructed by trees and bushes, that was all she could see. She craned her neck, leaning harder against the glass. In her mind, she imagined the pain giving way and spilling her out onto the bushes below. She looked away and smiled, but then focused back on the place where she'd spotted movement. What was it? Was it just a neighbor outside? Could it be the government finally trying to make some sort of contact with its citizens? The next thing she noticed was dark clothing. It blended well with the deep green of the vegetation, noticeable, but not stark. As she continued to watch, she started to draw conclusions. It was definitely a person. They were alone. They were walking somewhere. For several minutes, she couldn't see much more than that. The mature neighborhood had equally mature trees with thick, low hanging branches. From outside, she probably could have seen more, but from here, there were just too many obstacles. Several more minutes passed as she curiously but idly watched the person travel through the neighborhood, inexorably moving in her direction. She had no idea where the person was going, but she was now invested in finding out. Who were they? What did they look like? Where were they going? She couldn't even hear the conversation going on behind her at this point. It wasn't even background noise. She wasn't even sure if they were still in the room with her, and she didn't care. Then she finally got a real glimpse of the person. It happened in stages, her nose now cartoonishly plastered to the window. At first, she could see their form unobstructed, but they were cast in shadow. All she could tell was that they looked big in comparison to the bushes behind them. Then they started walking out into the late evening sun, revealing a mouth-wateringly powerful build in a dark outfit. In her boredom, she fantasized about running her hands over those muscles, maybe even untucking that shirt and sneaking her hands up underneath it. She wondered what he would do if she changed course, instead reaching into those surprisingly tight pants. Would he groan? Gasp? Stop her? What are you doing? She pulled back, a little disgusted with herself for mind-fucking the poor bastard. Not cool, Jess. Not cool. Shaking herself, she focused back on the guy, but this time paying attention to the mysteries he still had. Like his currently shadowed face. Wish I had binoculars. It was easy enough to see his big, well-defined muscles from this distance, but his facial features were a lot smaller and thus a lot harder to discern. Was he handsome? Cute? Boyish? Why am I doing this? Am I really this bored? Still, he was a mystery. A mystery that had nothing to do with the threat looming over their heads, and she eagerly awaited the unveiling of the answer, happily devouring any distraction she could lay her hands on. She held her breath as the line of shadow crept higher and higher and higher, on the brink of revealing him fully. She frowned when sunlight finally touched skin. Was he sunburned? Was the sunset creating an optical illusion? The line of shadow continued to move upward, revealing surprisingly red skin, leaving her with a new mystery to solve. Why was he so red? When it exposed his mouth, it didn't look like he was in discomfort, so she nixed sunburn as a potential cause. As she continued to watch, a sinking dread started to settle in her stomach. He was growing closer, and his skin was just too red, too vibrant, to be the result of the warm light from the setting sun. He stepped out onto the street, now only a house or two down the road, and the air froze in her lungs as recognition finally clicked in her brain, and the mystery was solved. It's him. Memories of the encounter this afternoon flashed through her mind. Red skin, black uniforms, swishing tails, foreign words, paralyzing fear. Her lungs started to complain, the pressure building as she continued to stand there, staring at the impossibility before her. It can't be. But it was. The proof was right before her, walking toward her one step at a time. Her hands felt cold against the glass, her fingers reflexively gripping the slick material. She finally sucked in a breath, and it was like the world had suddenly started up again. He followed me home. She stepped back from the window, panic flooding her as the paralysis ended. He followed me home. Jess? Someone said. But in her current state of mind, she couldn't tell who'd spoken. She continued backing up, unable to take her eyes off the approaching form. Her legs banged into the coffee table and she stalled, taking a moment to keep her balance. Then she turned slightly, and their eyes met through the glass. He sees me. He knows where I am. Then a smirk lifted his lips, and the fear took control. She screamed. Anyway, thank you for watching to the end of this video. I hope you really enjoyed it. What did you think? What do you think is going to happen next? Leave me a comment below. Anyway, that's all I have for today. If you liked the video, consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell if you want notifications. And if you want to connect with me and my content in other places, you can find links to my various social media accounts in the video's description, along with places where you can find my stories and books online. Most of my stories are available for sale in ebook, paperback, and hardcover formats, and if you're the type of person who just can't wait, you can get early access to my stories on my Ream subscription, which also includes most of my back catalog with a subscription for free. Ream is, which I guess technically it's not free because you're paying for it, but it's certainly cheaper than buying it individually. So Reem is 5 episodes ahead with Fated Mates of the Drakoan at this moment, and currently sharing my unintended whip of Match to the Alien Captain. Anyway, until next time, here's a few things you can watch while you're waiting for my next video. Bye!